All right, everyone, rise and shine. It's time for another deep dive, and today we're tackling something many struggle with, myself included sometimes, and that is essay writing.
Oh yeah, the bane of many a student's existence.
Indeed. But specifically, we're looking at essays for the TOEFL exam.
Ah yes, the test of English as a foreign language. A formidable challenge for those seeking to prove their English proficiency.
You got that right. And today we have a real-life example to work with. We'll be looking at the work of Suenya, a TOEFL hopeful who has bravely shared her first draft essay with us.
Excellent. So we'll get to analyze her work, see what she's doing well, and where there's room for improvement. It's like a live coaching session.
Exactly. I'm excited to see what Suenya has come up with. Plus, we have her teacher Paulo's feedback to guide us. He's pointed out some key areas for her to focus on.
Wonderful. Having that expert perspective is invaluable. So before we dive into the essay itself, can you remind us about the structure of the TOEFL writing section?
Sure. There are two parts to the writing test. First, there's the integrated writing task, where you have to synthesize information from a reading passage and a listening passage.
Right. So it's testing your ability to process information from different sources and then combine it into a coherent written response.
Precisely. And then there's the independent writing task, which is what we're focusing on today. For this one, you're given a prompt and you have to write an essay expressing your own opinion.
Ah, so that's where Suwenya's essay comes in.
Yep. And the prompt she got was a doozy. Let me find it here. Okay, here it is. She was asked to analyze EMBRAPA's historic role in the development of Brazil's agriculture. EMBRAPA is a pretty huge Brazilian agricultural research corporation.
I see. So she needs to discuss how this company's research and technology has impacted both local farming practices in Brazil and also contributed to the global agricultural community.
You got it. She also needs to talk about EMBRAPA's influence on things like sustainable farming techniques and boosting productivity, and how they've promoted environmental conservation through their scientific advancements.
That's quite a lot to cover. It sounds like a very comprehensive prompt.
It is. The prompt even asks her to evaluate the global implications of EMBRAPA's research and technological innovations. How can their approach to agricultural sustainability serve as a model for other nations?
Right, those facing similar challenges in feeding their populations while at the same time trying to maintain environmental integrity. A delicate balance for sure.
Definitely. And to help her with all this, teacher Paulo suggested she use examples from EMBRAPA's projects to illustrate her points. Things like their work on genetically modified crops and soil management, that sort of thing.
Those are good examples. Okay, so it seems like Suenya has her work cut out for her.
She does, but I'm confident she can handle it. All right, so let's get to the heart of the matter. Why don't you read Suenya's first draft for us? Let's hear what she came up with.
Sounds good. Let's see what we've got.
All right, here goes. EMBRAPA was created in 1973 during the period of dictatorship in Brazil. In 2025, it will be 52nd years. EMBRAPA is the main research company in the world that works with tropical agriculture. This company is spread for 5 regions around the country and cover all the Brazilian biomes, with 49 units. It is organized by main products in the exportations table and Brazilian basic basket, such as soy EMBRAPA, located in Parana State, corn and sorghum EMBRAPA in Sete Lagoas, Minas Gerais, rice and beans EMBRAPA in Goiânia, Goiás, cotton EMBRAPA in Campina Grande, Paraíba, and others. Besides this, there are the units which are organized by ecosystems, biomes, and themes, such as Eastern and Western Amazonia, located in Belém, Pará, and Manaus, Amazonas respectively, Cerrados EMBRAPA in Brasilia, the capital city, Soils EMBRAPA in Rio de Janeiro, Digital Agriculture EMBRAPA, etc. It is a big company. Today, it has more than 8,000 workers between researchers, research analysts, and research assistants, a diverse and expertise net around the country. Whew, that was a mouthful. It is a very dense paragraph packed with a lot of information. All right. Okay, let's keep going with the second paragraph. Brazilian agribusiness was created based on EMBRAPA's research results. For example, the main culture of agribusiness's exportation as the soy was adapted by EMBRAPA's researchers in the 80s. Agriculture was possible in Brazilian Cerrado biome, as we had known today, as a result of soil management researches. Furthermore, the high productivities of soy in our country had supported by findings of EMBRAPA's research on nitrofixation in the soy by legumes. According to the MPA Agrostat, the share of agribusiness in Brazil's trade balance had grown almost 10 times since 1997. It is an example how Brazilian agriculture is based on research and sustainable development.
It seems like she's trying to highlight some key achievements of EMBRAPA in that paragraph.
Yeah, she's got some good points in there, but it could definitely use some refining. All right, last paragraph coming up. Although there are new challenges in current research agendas, such as climate changes and finiteness natural resources, in special water and soil, the maintenance of specialized research institutions as EMBRAPA is pivotal to build sustainable strategies to survive in hard times in any place over the world. Conforming to the forecast based on scientific evidences, there will be a new world map of agriculture if the impacts of climate changes, which we had already seen, are confirmed. Many regions where today soy is cropped, they are going to change. Not only the soy, but many like others of our basic basket cultures, like beans, rice, cassava, and corn. Therefore, we have to preserve all of public institutions and companies, which goals are research, education, and preservation.
It seems like she's making a case for the continued importance of institutions like EMBRAPA, especially in the face of climate change and resource scarcity.
Yes, exactly. She's got good grasp of the overall argument, but her writing needs some work. And luckily, that's where Teacher Paulo's feedback comes in.
Right. Let's see what he has to say. Where should we start?
Well, Paulo was very thorough in his feedback. He started by looking at the grammar and mechanics, the nitty-gritty stuff. And he noticed a lot of little errors that could really hurt Suenya's score.
Like what kinds of errors?
Well, for example, right off the bat, in the first sentence, she writes, EMBRAPA was created in 1973. And Paulo pointed out that the correct preposition is in, not at, when referring to years.
Yes, that's a common mistake. It should be EMBRAPA was created in 1973.
Exactly. He also noticed a few other preposition issues throughout the essay. Like in the first paragraph, again, she says, it is organized by main products in the exportations table. But Paulo suggests the more accurate phrasing, it is organized based on the main export commodities.
Yeah, I can see why he made that change. Based on sounds more formal and precise, which is important for academic writing.
Absolutely. And then there's the matter of articles. Oh boy, the articles. Those tiny words can cause so much trouble.
I sure can. What did Suenya do with them?
One example is in the second paragraph. She writes, agriculture was possible in Brazilian Cerrado biome, as we had known today. But she's missing the definite article, the before Brazilian Cerrado biome. It should be agriculture in the Brazilian Cerrado biome as we know it today became possible.
Right, because we're talking about a specific biome, so we need that the to make it clear.
Exactly. And Paulo also pointed out that the verb tense in that sentence needs adjusting. As we had known today doesn't quite work. It should be as we know it today.
So it's a combination of article usage and verb tense issues all in one sentence. It shows how those little things can really add up.
They really do. And speaking of verbs, Paulo found quite a few errors with verb tense and agreement throughout the essay. For example, in the first paragraph, she says, in 2025, it will be 52nd years.
Yeah, I see the issue there. That's not grammatically correct. How did Paulo correct it?
He changed it to, it will celebrate its 52nd anniversary. So not only is the subject-verb agreement corrected, but the language is also more natural and idiomatic.
That makes much more sense. Good catch, Paulo.
And then there's this sentence from the second paragraph. Brazilian agribusiness was created based on EMBRAPA's research results. Now, while created isn't exactly wrong, Paulo suggests using developed instead. So it becomes Brazilian agribusiness was developed based on EMBRAPA's research.
I see the nuance there. Developed implies a more gradual process, which probably reflects the reality of EMBRAPA's impact more accurately.
Exactly. It's a subtle but important distinction. And then there's the classic past participle confusion that so many English learners struggle with.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say. She used sawn instead of seen, didn't she?
You guessed it. In the third paragraph, she wrote, if the impacts of climate changes which we had already seen are confirmed, it should be, if the impacts of climate change which we have already seen are confirmed. And of course, Paulo corrected it.
That's a very common mistake, but it's one that can be easily avoided with practice.
Absolutely. Now, moving on from verbs, Paulo also pointed out some issues with singular and plural forms. In the first paragraph, Suenya talks about more than 8,000 workers and a diverse and expertise net.
I see a couple of problems there. First, the number 8,000 should have a comma, not a period. And expertise net doesn't sound quite right.
Right, on both counts. Paulo corrected it to more than 8,000 employees, including researchers, research analysts, and research assistants, forming a diverse and highly skilled network.
Much better. Not only is the number formatted correctly, but the language is also more precise and professional.
Precisely. Now, lastly, for the grammar and mechanics section, we come to vocabulary and word choice.
Always a fun one. Let's hear it.
Well, right away in this second paragraph, there's a misspelling. Suenya writes sustainable instead of sustainable.
Oh dear, that's an easy one to miss, but it can make a big difference in terms of credibility.
For sure. And then in the third paragraph, she uses the phrase finiteness natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
Paulo suggested changing it to depletion of natural resources.
Again, a much more accurate and standard way to express that idea.
Agreed. And lastly, there's this sentence. There will be a new world map of agriculture. Paulo suggested changing it to a new global agricultural map will emerge.
I like that change. Emerge is a much more evocative word and implies a process of transformation, which is fitting for the topic.
Absolutely. So as you can see, Paulo identified quite a few areas where Suenya needs to improve her grammar and mechanics. It's a lot to take in, but it's all very important for achieving a high score on the TOEFL.
It definitely is. But it's not just about the grammar, right? Paulo also gave some broader feedback on her writing skills in general.
Oh, yes, he did. He had a whole section called Enhancement Insights, where he talked about things like Suenya's tendency to misuse prepositions and articles.
Which, as we've seen, is definitely something she needs to work on.
For sure. And he advised her to practice identifying when definite and indefinite articles are necessary. That's key for mastering article usage.
He's right. It's all about practice. What else did he suggest?
Well, he also talked about the importance of verb tense consistency. He recommended that she review the rules for using past simple versus present perfect tense.
That's another area where many English learners struggle. It's tricky, but it's essential for clear and effective writing.
Absolutely. And then he addressed the issue of singular versus plural confusion. He suggested that she expand her vocabulary to include more accurate professional terms.
Yes, we saw that with the workers versus employees example earlier. Using more precise vocabulary can really elevate your writing.
Exactly. And lastly, he encouraged her to read high-quality research articles to improve her word choice.
Ah, yes. That's one of the best ways to develop a more sophisticated and nuanced vocabulary.
Absolutely. Now, in addition to all of that, Paulo also had some specific feedback related to exam success.
Okay, tell me about that. What kind of advice did he give her?
Well, first of all, he acknowledged that Suenya has a good grasp of the topic and that her argument is strong. That's great to hear. He's not just focusing on the negative.
It's important to recognize the strengths as well as the weaknesses. That can be very motivating for the student.
Exactly. But he also stressed the importance of 3 key areas: observing and adapting, sharpening her instincts, and prioritizing and focusing.
I like those. They sound like good general principles for success in any field, really.
They are. So for observe and adapt, Paulo specifically suggested that she listen to podcasts to improve her ear for natural English. That way she can get a feel for things like intonation, stress, and how native speakers use certain phrases.
That's a great tip. And it's especially relevant for the TOEFL since the listening and speaking sections are a big part of the test.
Yes, exactly. Now, for sharpen your instincts, Paulo emphasized the importance of time management. He actually asked Suenya how long she spent writing her essay, because in the TOEFL you have a limited amount of time for each task.
Right, so you have to be able to work quickly and efficiently. There's no time to dilly-dally.
Precisely. And that's why he suggested practicing under time conditions. It's the best way to get used to the pressure of the real exam.
It's like training for a marathon. You have to put in the miles to be ready for race day.
Exactly. Now, lastly, for prioritize and focus, Paulo advocated for targeted study sessions rather than just trying to cram everything in at the last minute.
Smart. It's about quality over quantity when it comes to studying.
Exactly. He suggested practicing full TOEFL simulations under test conditions. That way, she can get used to the format of the exam and identify any areas where she needs more work.
It's all about being strategic and making the most of your study time.
Right. Now, before we wrap up, I just want to point out that Paulo's overall tone in his feedback was very encouraging and supportive.
That's good. He's not just tearing her essay apart. He's providing constructive criticism and guidance.
Exactly. He seems genuinely invested in Suenya's success, which is always nice to see.
Definitely. So, to summarize, it sounds like Suenya has a lot of potential, but she needs to pay close attention to those pesky grammar rules and work on her overall writing skills.
Yep, that's about the size of it. But with Paulo's help, I'm sure she'll be able to improve significantly before the exam.
Agreed. So, what's next for Suenya? What specific homework did Paulo assign?
Well, first of all, he wants her to rewrite the entire essay, taking into account all of his feedback.
That makes sense. It's one thing to understand the corrections, but it's another thing to actually apply them in your own writing.
Exactly. And he also wants her to record herself doing the speaking section of the exam.
That's important too. the speaking section can be nerve-wracking, so it's good to practice as much as possible.
Agreed. Now, to help her with all of this, Paulo provided some additional resources. He gave her links to 2 grammar units that cover some of the areas where she's struggling. One is on if clauses, those conditional sentences with if.
Ah, yes, those can be tricky. There are so many different types of if clauses, and it's easy to get them mixed up.
Exactly. And the other grammar unit he linked to is on reported speech. How to report what someone said.
Right. Another area that can cause confusion for English learners.
Absolutely. So, by studying these grammar units, Suenya will be able to get a deeper understanding of those tricky grammatical structures.
Sounds like a plan. So what's next on her linguistic journey? What grammar point is she tackling after this?
The next one up is the past perfect tense.
Ah, another challenging but important one. It's all about mastering those verb tenses.
You got it. And to track her overall progress, Suenya's teacher uses these class stats.
What are those exactly?
It's like a little dashboard that shows her how she's doing in different areas. For example, it tracks her vocabulary growth, which is the number of new words she's learned, and her comprehensive lexicon repertory, which is her total active vocabulary.
That's a cool way to visualize her progress.
It is, and then it also tracks things like her oral fluency and speech engagement span, meaning how long she can speak comfortably in English.
Interesting. And her listening wavelength, which I assume is about how long she can focus and understand spoken English.
You got it. And finally, it shows her phonetic deviation ratio, which measures how accurate her pronunciation is.
Oh, wow. That's pretty comprehensive. It gives her a good overview of her strengths and weaknesses.
It really does.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great motivator to see those numbers going up.
Absolutely. So to wrap things up, I think there's a valuable lesson here for all of us, not just TOEFL test takers.
What's that?
Well, it's about the power of feedback and focused practice. No matter what skill you're trying to learn or what goal you're trying to achieve, getting specific feedback and then practicing strategically can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. We can all learn from Suenya's example. Even if you're not taking the TOEFL, think about how you can apply those principles in your own life.
Exactly. Identify areas where you need to improve, seek out expert feedback, and then put in the work. It's a recipe for success in any field.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So on that note, let's sign off for today. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for excellence.
And don't forget to practice your prepositions.
Haha. Yes, those pesky prepositions.